Hey y'all, hi. So this question was put to me in the comments a couple of weeks ago. How do you know when your wardrobe is complete? Or can it ever be complete? I feel that all the elements are there in mine, but I'm always searching to replace an element with one of better quality or better fit. Is the perfect closet, even if it's only perfect for me, an obtainable goal or merely an aspirational goal for my fantasy self? So I saw this comment and I was like, And then a couple of days later, I was like, aha, I have the answer. I have an answer. I mean, I feel like I have the answer. I'm sure it is merely an answer, but I want to talk it over with you. So that's what we're going to do today. If this happens to be your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm Hannah. I'm a writer. I will link my book down below. Please take a look at it. I also make these YouTube videos about beauty and consumerism. And you know, as long as you're registered to vote and you're planning to vote, I could not care less whether or not you subscribe to my channel. Let's get into the meat of the video. So, how do you know when your wardrobe is complete? Is it possible to eventually arrive at the perfect closet, even if it's just the perfect closet for you? And is there something wrong with you? I feel like this is the subtext of the question. Is there something wrong with you if your closet is done, but you then keep looking? And you know, of course, this applies to other things besides closets. For a lot of you, it'll be about your makeup collection. I know a lot of my viewers are much more into makeup than they are necessarily into fashion. And with some of you, it's vice versa. And for some of you, it's neither, but there's maybe something else in your life that you're kind of finished with or that you've worked on for a really long time, and you keep tinkering with it and worrying if there's something wrong with you because you never feel like it's done. If you're missing something, failing to do something because you keep making changes, because you keep wanting to make improvements. Is that the fantasy self in action? Is it a problem, etc., etc.? I think the answer is no. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. And here is why. Wabi Sabi. Not to be confused with wasabi is what it says on the Wikipedia page for Wabi Sabi. Disambiguation. Not to be confused with wasabi. And then this is what it says next. In traditional Japanese aesthetics, Wabi Sabi is a worldview centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. The aesthetic is sometimes described as one of appreciating beauty that is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete in nature. It is prevalent in many forms of Japanese art. Wabi Sabi is a composite of two interrelated aesthetic concepts, wabi and sabi. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, wabi may be translated as subdued, austere beauty, while sabi means rustic, patina. Characteristics of wabi-sabi aesthetics and principles include asymmetry, roughness, simplicity, economy, austerity, modesty, intimacy, and the appreciation of both natural objects and the forces of nature. So that last bit about the characteristics of the aesthetics, asymmetry, roughness, simplicity, etc., it doesn't necessarily have to be that the aesthetic of your closet or your collection or whatever it is you're thinking about as you go through these ideas with me, that the aesthetics align with wabi-sabi aesthetics. But I think that the concept of wabi-sabi as it pertains to curation, acquisition, curation, organization, the questions in the original comment can apply to any collection, even one that evokes a different visual aesthetic. Now, I am not by any means an expert in Japanese aesthetics or Buddhism, although I have spent a significant amount of time in my adult life sitting with the concepts of Buddhism and kind of thinking through the application of them. But that's just a personal practice. I'm not an expert. So take this all with that grain of salt. But I do think that the framing of the concept of wabi-sabi, nothing is perfect, nothing is permanent, nothing is finished, is the antidote to the anxiety about perfectionism, over-perfectionism, under-tinkering, over-tinkering. It's not good enough yet. It's not done yet. It's overdone. All of the different kinds of worry that can surround the process of acquisition and curation in our modern lives. I think that there are two kind of main ways that this philosophy could apply to the question at hand. So I'm going to talk through application number one, and then I'm going to talk through application number two of this philosophy, and then talk about how those might interact with each other, because they kind of seem like they might be at cross purposes, but I don't think that they actually are. So part 1, Wabi Sabi versus the need to constantly be upgrading individual pieces in your wardrobe, which is the example that we will use because that's the content of the original question. So the original commenter talked about the constant search for better versions of the thing she already has, always searching to replace an item with one of better quality or better fit. The part of the Wabi Sabi philosophy that I think applies most directly here is nothing is perfect. Fully ingesting the knowledge that nothing is perfect, I think potentially has the ability to temper that behavior if it's becoming something that's obsessive, if it's too much. An example for me right now is my black leather Arizona Birkenstocks. I do love them. They are kind of the summer sandal to end all summer sandals. They're incredibly well made, really sturdy, go with everything. And I've said several times on this channel that I do expect them to last pretty much for life. And I do love them, but I got so sick of them this summer because I broke one of my toes and they're the only shoes that I can wear. I also happened to step in some really gross stuff wearing them a couple of times. So, I've had to clean them off, but I feel like they've gotten a little bit grosser over the course of the summer because of the constant wear and just the way in which the world is hard on shoes, and yet I've had to continue to keep wearing only them. Joe stepped on the back of one and a little piece kind of broke off, which is something that I think can be fixed eventually at the cobbler, but I haven't been able to be parted from them long enough to go ahead and do that this summer. I think that when they get resold eventually, that will be fixed. But I got to the point where I was so ready about halfway through the summer to shelve them for something else, something newer, fresher, in better condition, a little bit more exciting, but I couldn't for actually a couple of reasons. One is my toe, but the other is that this is a slow time of year for us in general, and even slower because we just went through this moving process. So I'm just not buying anything new right now. I can't really. And here's what has happened. The Birkenstocks have developed that intense patina of use, a rustic patina, which is for some people pronounced patina. I assure you that it can be pronounced either way. Anyway, the Birkenstocks, they were a good enough quality to begin with. They were a good enough investment to begin with that with this hard wear of the summer, they were able to develop a patina, a rustic patina, instead of totally falling apart and becoming disgusting. When I really step back and look at them, actually, they look great. They look very broken in. They look very comfortable and they feel very comfortable. They look more quality because you can see the quality in them with your eye when you look at them. You can see the quality in the way that they have responded to the hard use. They had a kind of austere beauty to begin with. I mean, I purchased them with that in mind, and that helps. The newness has worn off, but something else has emerged. And when I think about them, when I look at them through the eyes of Wabi Sabi, keeping in mind that nothing is perfect and that perfection is not actually the goal, is not actually my goal for my belongings, then there's kind of this paradigm shift, a shift of the lens through which I'm looking, and I see them actually as having become more beautiful. They are more alive. They have become more alive over time. And if I think about putting them next to a brand new pair of the same exact shoes, mine are more beat up, but they have more character. They have more nature. And according to the Wabi Sabi aesthetic, they are more beautiful. Thinking about it that way completely dissolves that impulse to replace them with something new, to upgrade, to shelve them, and have a totally fresh new pair of shoes in their place. Because their age, their patina, their softness, like the softness that they've developed with use, that has added to their value. They've become more valuable over time with wear. And it's a kind of value that you can't buy. It's something that you can only earn, that a pair of shoes or, an item of clothing can only earn with use. Now, it's a little bit tricky because if you are searching to replace your items with ones of better quality or better fit, you might be in a situation where you are looking to replace a poorly made pair of shoes, one that doesn't have the qualities that will allow it to develop Wabi Sabi beauty over time because it's not well made enough. You might be looking to replace a cheaply made sandal that's only going to fall apart with a well-made sandal that is going to be able to develop over time and last for years and years in your wardrobe. If you are thinking about Wabi Sabi values and aspiring to see your wardrobe, to be able to conceive of it through this lens, then that is a kind of upgrading or kind of replacement that makes sense. But I already have a pair of sandals that has that potential, that has those qualities, and I was chafing against the wear and the age and the sameness of those sandals over time. And I had that urge to update, to replace, to upgrade to something newer, to something more perfect. That melted away when I started thinking about the Wabi Sabi wisdom that nothing is perfect. So I think it could kind of go either way, but in many cases, an understanding and ingestion of Wabi Sabi could slow down and kind of inform that process of always trying to upgrade. Okay, part 2, Wabi Sabi versus the need to be finished curating your wardrobe, and that striving towards the end of the process and the anxiety that comes with feeling like you have not reached the end, or you don't feel like you are finished curating your wardrobe, even though you maybe think you should acknowledge that you are finished. Of course, the aspect of this philosophy that is the antidote here is this: nothing is finished. Nothing is permanent. A collection of items that you wear is, by definition, impermanent. You are going to lose things, perhaps ruin things, maybe fail to bond with things. Your life will change a bit. Your body will change a bit. Literally, your wardrobe and your body will each change very slightly from one day to the next as your wardrobe gets worn one more day and your body ages one more day. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is in stasis in this world. We talk about buying something for life, which is a really good principle. And the principle by which I spent $200 on my Birkenstocks, for example, which is why they are of such good quality that they are able to develop a patina instead of falling apart. But that principle is simply a guide, hopefully, towards making choices of objects that can flow with you in a Wabi Sabi manner, that can flex and age with you. It is not about the perfect wardrobe being something that you strive for and then achieve and get a gold star, A+, it's finished and you are now perfect. So this part of the question, that is, will a wardrobe ever be finished? Is a minimalist's wardrobe ever done, ever set in stone? And how do you know when you get there? I feel like this part of the question reveals a slight anxiety about not having a definition of a finished wardrobe, and so not being able to identify it when you've reached that point. That anxiety is totally dissolved, like broken apart and sort of dissolved and allowed to float away by the wisdom that nothing is perfect and that nothing is finished. And I think that this part of the Wabi Sabi philosophy could potentially help someone to kind of take a deep breath and relax the obsession with rushing to the finished line in the process of curation, and just make it feel less urgent to get everything kind of shipshape. So these parts of the Wabi Sabi principle, these 3 parts, nothing is perfect, nothing is finished, nothing is permanent, they kind of circle around each other. Knowing that nothing is perfect might help quell your need to keep replacing your stuff with newer, more perfect stuff. But knowing that nothing is finished might give you the freedom to keep tinkering with your wardrobe, adding and subtracting here and there without feeling like you're failing as a curator of your stuff or failing as a minimalist. Ideally, we have a situation where consumption becomes more thoughtful, stuff in the home becomes more manageable, dressing oneself becomes easier and with a better outcome every day, but without the anxiety of striving for perfection or completion. The idea that nothing is permanent is a very difficult one to ingest and live by. It is a truth. It is an empirical truth, but it's a truth that has the potential to make us feel destabilized and anxious if we are attached to things being a certain way. But it also has the potential to unlock real freedom in daily life. And this, of course, course, goes way beyond being about clothes, although I do think it's a good example of the wardrobe being the window to the soul, so to speak. And that's why I was excited to see this question and excited to answer it. Because these questions, the more profound versions of these questions, how do we know when we are complete? When can we stop striving to make everything just right? When will everything be settled so that we can stop working on it? These questions, as easily undone as they are by the knowledge that nothing is perfect and nothing is complete and nothing is finished, these questions underpin daily life and kind of undermine the inner lives of so many of us. And I think it is well worth taking a look at them. It has been well worth taking a look at them through the lens of the wardrobe and through the lens of this cornerstone of aesthetic wisdom that is the Wabi Sabi worldview. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much to the original commenter for this question. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to register to vote, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world. We did it. We did it. We really, really did it. This video is complete and perfect and permanent. Take that.